At least he came in and said it to people's faces.
He doesn't think that that's the same Joshua right now, and that's why he's taking this fight.
The neutral listening to that is going to want Usyk to win, aren't they? I think you've got to give credit where credit's due. You've got them all together. Welcome to Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. This is episode 49. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing, watching the videos and leaving your comments in the section below. But let's get straight into this week's agenda. Agenda. Do we have an agenda this week? Any agendas that we've got? Any rights that we want to wrong or wrongs that we want to right?
There's loads of rights and wrongs and rights.
Absolutely. Busy week.
Yeah.
Interesting week. Lots of developments. Lots of good fights on the weekend. I know you were up in Wolverhampton.
Yeah, I was.
With Ben and Boxer.
Yeah.
But we had a series of very interesting press conferences last week. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, we've now got the announcements of this card that I think is an interesting card. It's been laced with a bit of criticism because we haven't seen some of the fights being made that we want. But what was your takeaway? We forecast it last week. We talked about what we thought was coming.
Yeah.
We've now seen it. We've seen the protagonists. We've seen the people on the stage. We've seen Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
We've seen Anthony Joshua. We've seen Jarrell Miller. You know, we've seen Daniel Dubois. What did you take away from those press conferences?
Look, what did I take away from them? I thought that it was an unusual press conference, really, because of the mannerisms of certain people. I thought that Anthony Joshua looked very agitated.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. He was angry, very agitated. I'm not sure what the reasonings were behind that. Deontay Wilder actually was very relaxed. He was very good. Jarrell Miller, who we'll get into, he sort of made the press conference in many ways because he was the one being vocal. You know, and Daniel Dubois obviously is a unique character himself. He didn't really have too much to say, but there was a little bit of back and forth there. But yeah, it was an interesting one because of Joshua's sort of angry mentality.
Did you think any of it was contrived? I mean, look, we obviously saw a litany of personalities up there. We saw Otto Wallen as well, and we saw Jay Opatea, and we saw a variety of other people up there. And you know, criticisms were about we saw all this wonderful array of cards, but the deck wasn't shuffled the way people wanted it to be. But I thought Jarrell Miller was set up to be the bad guy, to get the press conference going, to get a bit of energy in it. Daniel doesn't have the capacity, with all due respect to him, to bite back the way that others would have wanted him to do so. But I also looked at Anthony, and I didn't know whether his reaction, you know him better than obviously I do. Do you think that was a contrived reaction? Do you think it was in reaction to just Miller being disrespectful?
I think there's a history between him and Miller. They were meant to fight a few years ago, weren't they, at Wembley? Jarrell Miller obviously failed those drug tests. He's been away. He served his time. Do we think that's right? We can get into all that. Do we think? No, I don't. You know, I'm strong about drugs within the sport. I think the bans are too lenient towards the fighters. But he served his time, so he's back now. So you know, that's it. It's done. You can't. There's nothing we can do about that. Nothing. I think that's where Anthony Joshua has always had a problem with him. And then Jarrell Miller obviously getting into Anthony Joshua, talking about the psychological damage that he's got, and he doesn't think he's the fighter he was, and it sort of got under Joshua's skin.
Yeah.
I understand.
Well, he was more pointed than that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was basically saying everybody in the room knows that AJ doesn't want any smoke.
Well, you've got
two choices.
Yeah.
You go to the morgue with Wilder, or you go to the hospital with me, which was a good line from a takeaway point of view.
He's great. He's great at selling a fight. However you want to look at it, he made the press conference because he was so vocal, and it was entertainment. You know, I think that I know people are disappointed with the fights that have been made on this one card on December. You know, with Joshua, Otto Wallen, and
do you think that's fair?
I think it's because I understand where this is going. I know that Anthony Joshua has signed a free fight deal. I know that Deontay Wilder has signed a free fight deal. I know that they're both fighting on this card on December the 23rd, and then they're going to fight again, talking about March the 9th, with the rematch clause in place, obviously, if it's not too one-sided, depending on how that goes. So we know how the roadmap's laid out. So I understand where this is. It's about showcasing these fighters out in Saudi Arabia, and just moving on through the year, and we're going to get some big fights and some, so I understand what it is.
Yeah,
I think that people are frustrated, Simon, because they want Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder now, but the Saudis have got their own business model, and they understand what it is, and they understand what they're trying to achieve. If you're looking at the money that they're investing at the moment, and to what they're getting off the back end, as you know, they're losing a phenomenal amount of money. So, but they're not worried about that. This is about the longevity of staying within the sport. So I understand where it is. I understand what it is.
Because the perception is, I don't know if we discussed it already, I think Anthony Joshua's main focus is to be a 3-time world champion. And I think he can live with anything beyond that if it goes the way it goes, if he were to fight other people that may beat him, if he gets to Tyson Fury. Is it reasonable to assume that by Anthony Joshua, I don't know if we discussed this, but for the point of either repeating ourselves or reevaluating it, that if he fights Wallin, who effectively is the number 2 in the IBF, he beats Wallin, he then gets the opportunity to fight Hrgovic potentially on the basis of the fact that when Fury fights Usyk, the belts will get scattered. The first one to go will be the IBF.
Absolutely.
Which means Anthony gets a shot against Filip Hrgovic because he takes over from Otto Wallin.
Yes.
And Otto Wallin's taken this fight rather than wait out the opportunity because it's a bigger payday potentially with AJ than it might be when he fights Hrgovic.
I interviewed Otto Wallin on Wednesday, and it's not just the fact that it's a bigger payday. He's in a position now where they box twice as amateurs, both very close fights in championships. And he just feels that Anthony Joshua's not the fighter that he was in 2015, 2016. And he says that he feels that now the timing's right, and him coming off that win against Gassiev has boosted his confidence. And he just feels that Joshua's in a vulnerable position, and he thinks that he can exploit that. And that's where he's at. And I think that that's the educated or calculated gamble on taking the fight with Joshua.
Yeah, there's a level of risk, because I mean, there's a lot of people, and I see Anthony Joshua's interview with Louis Theroux, where he makes observations about his ability to do things. And Anthony bristled at that time, didn't he, about how does anyone know what I think and what I don't think? I'm the only person. So Wallin's sort of fallen into that game plan, hasn't he?
And he also mentioned about the pressures of becoming a 3-time world champion and the pressures that were on my shoulders, you know, and is that part of the psychological damage that's going on with Anthony Joshua right now? And he's tapped into that, Wallin. Wallin's a cool cat. He's a cool customer, and he fancies his chances. Like I say, it's not that he doesn't. He was also a sparring partner for Anthony Joshua when he was fighting for the world title against Martin.
Right.
Yeah, and he said that he doesn't think that that's the same Joshua right now, and that's why he's taking this.
But in times gone past, we would expect Anthony Joshua to beat Wallin, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And this is as much, as always, this is not about what Wallin brings. This is more to do with what Anthony Joshua brings.
Yeah.
If Anthony Joshua brings himself in the right frame of mind, with some of the things that people are observing diminished in terms of the lack of preparedness to get in range or to let his hands go, if that isn't the case, and we're seeing the rebuild third fight in, and we're starting to see the improvement after knocking Helenius out in the 7th round, you would expect Anthony to come through Wallin, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the gamble that I think that the Saudis have taken, and why they've signed up Anthony Joshua for 3 fights and Deontay Wilder for 3 fights, because Joshua's come through the Helenius fight with that showreel knockout. But up until that point, people were going, "Come on, Ant, let's go, mate, pick it up," and we didn't quite see what we needed to see. Now I think they're hoping that Anthony does do that. Now he's got that added little bit of confidence, and he does do that with Otto Wallin, does what Tyson Fury couldn't do. Deontay Wilder's boxing on the card as well. He's boxing Joseph Parker. Stylistically, that's good for Wilder, because Parker will stand in front of him. He can get it with the right hand. So you'd expect Wilder to come through that. Although inactivity's played a big part on his side, you know, in the last couple of years. He's not getting any younger. What is he, 40 years of age now? So anything can happen there. But I think what the Saudis are planning is a good performance by Joshua, and Wilder sets up possibly the biggest fight in boxing right now.
You brought Wilder up, and I'm just going to, before we sort of comment on Wilder's disposition and demeanour at the top table, we were both at the Joyce fight with Joseph Parker.
Yeah.
Where Joseph Parker landed and landed and landed and landed and landed.
Yes.
Until eventually Joyce caught up with him.
Yeah.
Does he have the power, do you think? If Joseph Parker, I think he has the technical ability, and there's always this observation about he doesn't let his hands go enough and things of that nature. Do you think he's got the technical ability to make it difficult for Deontay Wilder? And if he lands as well as he landed against Joyce, could you see him doing some damage to Deontay?
No, do you know what? This is my main concern. One is the punch power, and I don't know that he has that ability with what we've seen with Wilder picking himself off the floor numerous times against Fury. You know, he's got
Who hits
that,
harder, Fury or Parker?
Oh, Fury.
Does he?
Yeah, Fury hits harder, definitely. And I just think that Joseph Parker, now he's training up with the Fury, he's in the Fury camp, he's sort of adapted that Fury sort of style. He sits down and carries his left hand.
Better not criticise him as he'll ban us.
In his last fight, when he boxed in his last fight, he won in a few rounds, didn't he?
Yeah.
Forget the guy's name, but he was, Dempsey.
Was it Dempsey?
Yeah, Dempsey Keane.
Dempsey Keane.
Yeah, Dempsey Keane. Yeah. So he got against Dempsey Keane, who was very raw and robust and sort of like, but he was nailing Parker with the right hand. Obviously, that's Deontay's main shot. Deontay's very explosive with that. He's got quick hands. So I think stylistically, Parker's made for Wilder.
Right.
I think so. Yeah, unless Parker can do something dramatically different to what he normally does, you know, you would favour Wilder heavily.
I mean, I spoke to Malik Scott about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Who I found very interesting character.
Yeah.
Really nice bloke.
Great student of the game.
A great student of the game. Obviously went in against Deontay, got knocked out in the first round. And a real observer, a real person that you can have a discussion with, whether you've laced up a set of gloves or not. What do you attribute? What did you make of Wilder's disposition? Is this just a moment in time where he's back in front of the media and he's very low key? Everyone he wished the best for, everyone he had good, kind words for. This is a total departure from the fighter that says that he wants the body on his record and so on and so forth. Is this just because it's, you know, not fight week and we're going to hear more of that, or more of the traditional Deontay Wilder patter from Bomb Squad to I want a body on my record? Not that I suggest that we advocate for that kind of language.
Sure.
But what did you make of it?
I think this whole U-turn in his personality and him being more respectful and, you know, talking about what other good fighters there are in the division and whatnot is because he's not holding all the cards now. He's not the WBC champion of the world. No, so what I'm saying is he's sort of in that position where people go, Deontay Wilder, I don't need him. So he's going, look, I just want the opportunity now. He wants that fight again. He wants to fight with Anthony Joshua. He's desperate for that fight. Tyson Fury is obviously the other one. He wants that fight with Alexander Usyk, and I think that he's.
Do you think it's because he went to a dark place, by his own words, after we know 2 but 3 defeats? You know, because there was a lot of nonsense from him about Fury with things in his gloves, the weight of his costume, all that sort of stuff. Do you think that some of it is, I mean, you're suggesting it's humility because he ain't got the juice in the room at this moment in time, which means that a leopard and spots will change back? Or is it because his psyche's perhaps been changed by some chastening defeats that took him to a dark place?
Well, it definitely would have taken him to a dark place, and he would have, had to go soul searching for that, you know, to come through that. Especially in the manner of defeats against, you know, the Tyson Fury, and the way you rebuild and come back from that. It's a very difficult thing to do. So he's changed as a character. He's probably changed as a character. He's more respectful.
But we're going to see more. We're going to see more menace from him, aren't we?
Of course we are.
We're not going to hear.
If he gets that opportunity and them contracts are signed, of course we are. He's a great talker as well, as you've seen in the past. A lovely human being, by the way. His backstory is incredible and how he started boxing for his daughter and his family, etc. He's a good guy, a really good guy, but he's just looking for another opportunity. And I think he gets that now. And I think the fight he's always craved anyway is Anthony Joshua. Stylistically, that's probably the best fight in heavyweight boxing right now.
Well, that's what a lot of people say. That's what you and I have said.
Absolutely.
And, you know, much to the chagrin of the Fury acolytes, I do think it's the most intriguing fight. What do you think of... It's you can't help but slightly be disappointed by Daniel Dubois at the press conference, because what you wanted Daniel to do is say, shut up, you numpty.
Probably with Daniel.
But he didn't. And Frank put him in that position and he didn't say anything.
Yeah, but Frank sort of put him in that position. Yeah, Frank put him in a position, but then Frank also answered for him. Because Daniel's one of those, do you know what? He's such an infectious kid. He trains up with Don Charles in the gym that I use, up in Don Charles's gym. And he's such an infectious kid, but he's not a great speaker. He can't put his words together too well. He doesn't do that whether the camera's on him or not, off or on him. It is what it is. And I think that going in against Jarrell Miller, though, who's the best talker in the world, who's like, he's going to give you a run for your money.
Doesn't that steer? But doesn't it play along a line? Do you think Daniel Dubois is going to be a world champion? I tell you why I ask, right? Because again, I understand the point that some people can speak and some people can't in terms of in terms of public appearances. But if you're going to be on front of a camera, you've got to develop that ability to do it a little bit better than what Daniel does right now.
Don Charles is trying to work with
that. Then
that.
You've got the reticence in the fights themselves. You've got the unfathomable. You can speak to this far better than me, obviously, as a fighter. guy's hurt, world title's on the line, you don't jump on him, irrespective of waiting for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you get to the 9th round, or it was the 9th, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you don't appear to bite down your gum shield. And then it comes to press conferences and someone's insulting you, and your promoter calls you out to say something. And does all of that make you worry that whilst the tools are there,
of course,
the actual ability to execute might evade him?
Of course. The problem we've got now with Daniel Dubois moving forward, and only he can sort this out and address it, is that there's this dark cloud hanging over him and people questioning. And this is where a space that you don't want to be in when you're a boxer, when another man questions your desire and your heart and whether you've really got that bit and whether you can really bite down your gum shield. Because when you lose that invincible vulnerability, when you lose that, and boxers fancy that, they think they'll go through stuff that they wouldn't normally go through, like, how do I explain this?
You mean aura of invincibility?
Yeah. Is that what I said?
No, you said invincibility of aura ability.
Oh, did I? Aura of invincibility, Sorry, take that out. Anyway, so look, use Mike Tyson as an example. Mike Tyson, before he got knocked out by Buster Douglas, when he was hitting people, they were going over because he had that aura of invincibility around him. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So
I do now.
Yeah. I didn't know I said that. So what I'm saying is, once that went, people fancy it, and then they'll try and take him into a later space where they go, if I can get him into the second half of the fight, we'll see what he's like. We'll see what his makeup's like. And I think that...
What do you expect it does? I mean, you expect him to beat Jarrell Miller, right?
I do, but this is the thing, right? That Jarrell Miller is one of those stubborn characters that will keep coming and he'll keep pushing. So if Daniel Dubois doesn't get him out of there inside 6, then it becomes interesting, because then we're going to get the answers that we need to know. Because I go by that one with Usyk, and I just saw what was going on there, and he'd done well. I thought he rolled the dice and went for it.
To a degree,
but I also understood that he blew a gasket trying to get Usyk out of there after the
engine-wise.
And he blew a gasket engine-wise trying to get him out of there, and he had nothing left. But that doesn't mean that he couldn't punch his way to the end. You know what I'm saying? So he had the option to get up or not, and he chose to stay down. I get it. I understand that.
Does he have the physical composition, Daniel, to be in 12-round fights?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So why does his engine blow in the Usyk fight?
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think that the engine blew in the Usyk fight because you're talking about levels. So if you're boxing someone that's got that... So what Usyk done was, he recognised when Daniel was getting tired and he turned the screw.
Right.
Great champions do that. So when you're boxing at a level... I'll give you another example. When Tony Bellew boxed Alexander Usyk, after 7 rounds or 8 rounds, Bellew was actually up on the scorecards. But he said that I was working, where I was in 5th gear, he was in 2nd gear. And when the time was right, Usyk knew when to step it up, and he'd done that against Dubois. That showed the quality of the fighter himself. You know, and that's where you're at with Alexander Usyk. You go, look, we've seen Alexander, and you go like...
Not that we should take much notice of Tony Bellew, because he's going into the jungle, isn't he?
Oh, he is going into the jungle. He's in it. Is he in it already?
Apparently going in.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what we're going to learn there? My word. Lyndon Arthur?
Yep. Yeah.
Earned his right for the shot?
Yep. So Lyndon, as he earned his right for the shot, listen, it's about opportunity, and I like that. But it's a tough fight. That's a real tough fight.
Tougher fight for him than Beterbiev against Anthony Odd? Equal, isn't it?
Yeah, equal. Equal. Yeah.
I think it's a good card. People will suggest that has Saudi saved boxing's spirit this year. Well, I don't know what you think about that. I mean, the arguments rage, and we'll talk about a couple of conversations that have happened, notably Frank Warren with Adam Catterall over the weekend. But I don't think I think Saudi's created as many solutions as it's provided problems. The reasons why fights haven't happened until the end of the year is because it didn't suit the Saudis to do so. And now that everyone's got their mates and everyone's sitting there thanking Turki Al-Sheikh for making it, how do we put together a fight card like this? I know how you put a fight card like this. Give everybody precisely what they want. How much would you like? How much would you like? That's fine. You, how much would you like? Oh, that takes real commercial nous.
But do
you think Saudis have saved the boxing calendar this year with this 23rd
I think it's a great spectacle for the end of the year. I think it's a great way for the year to end, as in with the fighters that are on the card. Some of the fights that, like you say, the Lyndon Arthur fight, got Ellis Oro on there as well. Some of the fighters have got. That's about opportunity for them. That's very tail endings if they can come through those sort of fights.
Do you think there's any justification in people, because there seems to be a backswell of people that are being quite vitriolic about the fight card, and we don't want this and we don't want that. None of these fights has anybody asked for.
Yeah.
See, I think that's a little unfair. I think you've got to give credit where credit's due. You've got them all together. I know it's been made easy by the fact the Saudis will pay whatever they ask, right?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, it's made everyone's job easier, but it's still been done, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And what we've got now is 12 different promoters, top promoters globally, all together on one card, and that may change things. And that may change things, moving forward with different promoters, hopefully that work together.
No, it won't. The only thing that will change things is that there's enough money in the room.
Well, absolutely, but there's always enough money in the room.
If the Saudis aren't at the table, we'll have the same shenanigans that we've had before.
But the Saudis are only going to be at the table for these big shows, these big mega shows.
We'll see. We'll see. We've got some great fights on December the 23rd. Whether the order of them is right, I think people need to be a little bit more patient with the outcomes. Next set of fights, post this set of fights, if people don't see the promised land, then they can probably have a moment.
I think we will. I think
we'll see.
March the 9th. I think we do. If they both come through, I do think we see Joshua versus Wilder. I think they've always wanted it. Both parties always wanted it, but it's about the money.
But then by that token, and we're going to move on to in a minute to the next press conference. But by that token, then Joshua isn't fighting Hrgovic, is he?
Well, it depends how.
He either wants to be three-time world champion, or he wants to fight Deontay Wilder.
Absolutely.
I would wager he wants to be three-time world champion first.
Yeah, but I don't think that. I think that if the IBF opportunity comes along,
which it will.
But that's Filip Hrgovic versus Otto Wallin's number 2 in the IBF.
But he won't be, will he?
Yeah.
Because Anthony Joshua will have bashed him up at Christmas.
Well, yeah.
So what the point is, he won't be. Well, let's just assume that he's going to do that. So on that basis. It isn't going to be Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Everyone's going to have to call their jets because Anthony Joshua is going to go down the route of fighting Filip Hrgovic, isn't he?
Well, no, because he'll lose his position if he loses, won't he?
Well, if he loses against Wallin, he's done.
Yeah, he'll lose his position.
So if he beats Wallin, the next cab off the rank is not Anthony Joshua versus Wilder.
Well, I think that's the contracts that they've signed. That's what I'm hearing. I think that's the contract.
So you don't think he'll fight Filip Hrgovic then?
Depends. It's about the money as well, isn't it?
Okay.
It's about the
so
business.
We're going around in circles. We're not
going around. No, I'm saying as it stands. Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, March the 9th is penciled in.
Right.
What happens in between that is
But Anthony Joshua's stated aim,
yeah.
So we're clear and we finish this point off, is to be three-time heavyweight champion of the world. And his opportunity will be to beat Wallin, get his IBF ranking to the point where he's got to fight the vacated belt, and then he steps aside from being a three-time world champion to fight Wilder. That's not going to happen. He's going to fight Hrgovic to be 3 times world champion, and then maybe fight Wilder further down the line to defend that belt if he beats Hrgovic.
Possibly.
Anyway, second press conference of the week, the one that most people, I think, were waiting for, knew it was coming, the worst kept secret in boxing, but it's there, and true to Frank Warren's word, that during the Riyadh season, that there would be what everyone perceives to be the biggest fight in heavyweight boxing. You and I think the most exciting one is Fury versus Wilder. But the one that everyone wants to see, because it's the unification once and everyone. I was fortunate enough to be at the last unification with Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis in Madison Square Garden and in Los Angeles or Las Vegas.
1999.
1999. What do you think to the press conference and all that ensued?
Well, I wasn't there. Thankfully, I wasn't there because I believe.
Why weren't you there?
talkSPORT got kicked out because I went up
never
to...
were.
Who
would do such a thing?
Thankfully, I went to Wolverhampton, believe it or not. I chose to go to Wolverhampton for the Adam Azim fight. So I was working for Boxer. Went up there and obviously there was... Who was going? Gareth A. Davis, Pat, Ed. And unfortunately got kicked out, which was... do you know what? I think it's childish.
We'll get to that.
If I'm totally honest.
What do you think about the press conference? I mean, obviously...
Too much shouting. Too much... I don't agree with this whole Gappy 2 thing and sausage and, middleweight, etc., etc. I think there needs to be some respect shown, going into this fight. We're going to this undisputed. They've got the fight. The insults, I think we need to come away from that a little bit now.
Do you think that
Usyk's earned his right not to get insulted like that?
Do you not think that some of the hysterical reaction to Tyson Fury's outburst, because it's predominantly, it's all labelled at Tyson, right? You had Sylvester Stallone there, you've got a very pumped up environment, you've got the unification, you've got all the noise around it, you've got a bad performance against Francis Ngannou, background noise there. You've got a litany of pre-fight press conferences from Muhammad Ali calling Joe Frazier an Uncle Tom, to Mike Tyson telling Lennox Lewis he's going to eat his children and punching him on a pedestal. You know, we've seen this.
Yeah.
So why do you think there's so much feigned outrage? I just listened to it and I went, well, I don't know what it tells you about Tyson's mindset.
Yeah. Well, I think Fury's always been that way. He's always been a big character, a showman. He's always...
Look at his last two... Okay, you say that, but look at the press conference he did against Vladimir Klitschko. Came in as a Batman, humour.
Yeah.
Look at the Dillian White press conference. Came in, took the microphone, assured, confident, in control of the room.
It's gone too far.
This Fury is a different animal. Now, is that because you perceive it to be playing to the gallery, or is there something else going on?
Well, great question. You know, he's not getting any younger. And we saw, you can only go off last performances. He was terrible in his last performance. Yeah, you know, and is it a changing of the times? Does he know something that we don't? You know, and all those questions need to be answered. We need to see that. But his personality has become more aggressive, definitely. You know, you've gone from that circus of entertainment, is probably the best way of putting it, where people are enjoying what's going on, like you say, coming in as Batman, etc., to becoming a little bit insulting. And I'm not sure that that's giving off the right vibe. Vibe, yeah. Because
I mean, the neutral listening to that is going to want Usyk to win, aren't they? They're going to look at Usyk's behaviour and they're going to look at Fury's behaviour and they're going to go, well, hang on a second. What is the need for you to be so insulting?
Do you know what? You're meant to inspire the next generation. You've got all these kids that are watching that, looking up to their heroes. And the heavyweight, obviously the heavyweight division is the pinnacle of boxing. You've got these kids looking at it and you go, that's not the way you really should be behaving. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like you say, it's gone from that entertainment value to sort of aggressive and, a little bit uncomfortable, really.
See, I wonder... And I know I don't want to be sort of a armchair Freud, but I wonder if Tyson's not getting a bit carried away with himself because he spent too long in Saudi Arabia being told how wonderful he is and being given the red carpet, rolled out red carpet treatment, and gotten a bit carried away with the observations about what he's done for his country and how he's put 100,000 at Wembley Arena and put millions, hundreds of millions into, I don't know where he gets hundreds of millions from, and that he shouldn't have to queue at airports. I don't know whether all this is playing, or whether he's got too many people around him that are making too much money off him and only telling him what he wants to hear. Yeah.
Well, because listen, historically,
he's more articulate.
Absolutely.
When he chooses to be, than the press conference that we saw on Thursday. I didn't come away from it thinking anything other than, why have you got a wild hair up in your ass? Why you don't need to sell this fight?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You've given the guy a hug in the ring in Saudi after a terrible performance. You've been mates in the lead up to it and bumped into one another in the foyer before the fight. And now all of a sudden we've got this back to being ugly, gap-toothed middleweights.
Yeah.
It's a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. You know, and I think that what Fury's always been good at is getting into his opponent's mind and getting inside there. And I think with Alexander Usyk, he can't do that. You know, that he's just
shuts it down.
Yeah, he just shuts it down. And yeah,
are you still in the mindset, because you and I both use this expression, that he would ragdoll Usyk?
Yeah, I think that. Listen, I think that Fury still. I think going off the back of that bad performance against Ngannou is probably the kick up the arse that Fury needed to get himself back where he needs to be, because when that fear factor's not there, I don't care what you say, whether you've been training properly and you've left no stone unturned. You can clearly see that he had
wasn't focused.
Yeah, and he wasn't focused, and that won't be.
But they've all resisted this, you see, because that's an opinion.
I still think he wins.
That's an opinion.
Yeah,
it's not steeped in fact.
Yeah,
right.
They've all resisted opinions.
Not necessarily true, but they're not steeped in fact, and everyone's resisted that urge. Frank Warren's come out robustly and said he was focused. He did take it seriously. Fury said the same thing. Yeah. So, but every fighter I've spoken to,
well, if that's the case,
has said he wasn't focused. So, which one was it? Which one was it? Was it just a performance?
If Fury and Frank Warren both say, well, that is not true. He was focused. He hasn't left any.
Then he's got a world of pain coming from Usyk,
then he's got big problems because that means that he's going like this. He's on the downward spiral. I don't believe that to be the case. I truly believe.
Because Shane McGuigan,
in the mind of a fighter, I truly believe that he's gone there thinking I've got to turn up to win. And when it's not gone on and it's not going right and you're not switched on, you put in performances like that. I'm just speaking as.
Do you make any sense of some of the observations? I've heard Shane McGuigan say it, and a few other people said it as well. Boxing, protagonists that fought the sport, have been in the sport and trained and fought. Yeah. Right, that there's a feeling that the reasons why Fury is standing in the middle of the ring now. Yeah. and trading with fighters rather than doing what he did before is because his legs can't take it.
Yeah, well, look, as we see with fighters,
Ankles are gone,
let's use Floyd Mayweather as an example.
An
As he got older, he had that capability to be able to adapt and stand and sit in the pocket and just sort of ride the shots a little bit and change his style because his legs wouldn't carry him the way that they did when he was younger. Fury probably is having that. Right. He's been around a long time. He's been a pro a long time. Boxer's an amateur. And his legs probably won't carry him the way they used to. It's just a funny narrative because it's a criticism because we all raved about Fury's preparedness to stand in the middle of the ring in the second fight against Wilder and meet him in the middle of the ring. Yeah. And people didn't expect it, did they? No. And now it's being turned into a negative. Yeah. And turned into he's doing this because he can't do anything else. Do you know what? The fans should appreciate it because Fury boxing on the back foot
is a bit dull. And
out hustling people like Klitschko. It's like watching the skip go rusty. Yeah. It's not exciting. And, you know, people pay money because they, you know, put bums on seats because they want to see knockouts. They want to see explosive fights. Fury's style now is beneficial to the rest of the heavyweights. Mm.
Talking about skips going rusty, what did you make of Frank Warren's outburst with Adam Catterall?
Oh, do you know what? I thought it was, if I'm going to be totally honest, I thought it was unnecessary.
Has the heavyweight division been disappointing over the last 2 to 3 years?
No, it's not. I'll tell you why, and I'm going to go through it, because this is what you don't even understand or look at. So we made the #1 WBO with a #3, which was Parker. That was Joyce Parker. Yeah, we made the name Parker. They're the ones that are available. The other two guys had fights, so we done the next best thing. We then done Joe Joyce twice with Zhang, the #1 and #2. Were they warm lager? In the meantime, Joshua, within the last, 14 months, had his second fight against Usyk. So what bollocks are you talking about? It's just crap. You're in general, there's no in general, you just go and pick something out which is totally inaccurate and untrue.
But I said that you're going in the right direction. That's the step in the right direction.
What's the step in the... So, explain to me then. Right. So what's supposed to have happened then? What was supposed to have happened since last August? What were these guys all supposed to do? Not the one #1 and #2 and #3's not fight each other? Because that's what they did, isn't it, or not? We made the next best fights to be made. Then you've got the other fights there, which is the other fight that everybody's been trying to make, we've made. We've made that happen. And it's us who forced it. The reason it didn't happen is because Usyk signed with Skills Challenge, who never made an offer, never put a penny up, never had a venue to put it on or anything. And that's a fact of life. And as soon as that contract expired, we done the deal. So it's bollocks. And that's so frustrating and annoying. And you to go on the radio and just generalise warm lager. Do me a favour.
That's not what I've called this show, though. I've not called this show coming up that.
I know you didn't know. You said what's been going on as warm lager. Okay. You referred to the heavyweight division. That's what you said. I listened to it. So I don't get where you're at.
It was very unnecessary.
Well, I think it's conflicting for Adam because I think he's got a challenge in the fact that he knows that there is a breakdown in communications between talkSPORT and Fury.
He was worried about what he was going to say.
And he didn't want to say anything to make it worse. Now, fortunately for everybody, I wasn't there because I would have made it worse and no one would have access for the next 10 years.
But what would you have said, by the way?
Well, I think I did. I thought Frank took a liberty. I think he has the right to say what he said. Yeah. Because you can't have an opinion and then be denied one in return.
So I just thought it should have been done off the camera.
Well, I don't think it really matters.
It was a conversation that didn't need happening on the camera.
Well, it kind of did and didn't. You would say differently if Adam had smacked him. If Adam had said, well, hold on just a minute, Frank, right? I'll tell you what I want to say. Yeah. It is warm lager. Do you know why it's warm lager? Because it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. And if you don't like it, don't listen to me on the radio. Yeah. But here's my thought process. When I went to Chisora last year, which was a snore fest, I thought I was getting warm lager. I'm not getting any more. I don't think that's an unfair comment. Yeah. And you can hide, Frank, and you can talk about the idea of the fact that the unification fights don't get made very easily and it takes forever and a day. Fantastic, Frank. This is a different world. And you're now using a different shtick. You're now saying, stop having a go at everything because ultimately we don't like it. And the observations being made about opinions. So I didn't object.
So this rant the rant that Frank had at Adam was about that long speech that he done on talkSPORT on the Saturday fight night, wasn't it?
I know. I think it was all. No, I don't think it was that. I think it was to do with the speech that Adam gave last Thursday.
Right. Okay.
On the show or Wednesday when he talked about what we've got now is better than what we've had before.
It's a huge step in the right direction. I can't disagree. with the majority of what Frank was just saying there. Obviously, from a fight fan's point of view, there's going to be disappointment when you see Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder on the same card and you find out that they're not fighting each other. You're going to wonder why. But this is a massive step in the right direction. We've got a lot of big names on the same card. The positives that I take from yesterday's announcement are that we've got multiple amounts of promoters. I think 12 in total, I was told yesterday, promoters and managers that are all working together to put on one night with some of the biggest names in the heavyweight division in particular. It was great to see Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn finally together. Fingers crossed that's the sign of things to come. The analogy that I've come up with is, for a long period of time, we've been asking for champagne. Promoters have been promising us champagne. Several times they promised us champagne, but yesterday they dished up a decent bottle of Prosecco. Now, that's all well and good. If you look back 12 months, we were demanding champagne and they were promising us champagne and they were dishing up a pint of warm lager. So that's the development that we've made, I think, over the last 12 months. We're at a stage now where we're going in the right direction. This afternoon, they're going to announce something else. And hopefully that's the start of the champagne next year. I think we're on the cusp of something potentially really good. We're not there yet. I'm excited about what's coming up on December 23rd. There's some real good Jeopardy fights. It's not the ones that we asked for, granted, but we're going in the right direction.
Right.
We've been promised champagne and we've been given warm lager.
Yeah.
And now we're getting Prosecco. So it's better. And what Frank took exception to was the idea that too often where Frank is going is he's defending Tyson. And whether Frank likes it or not, he's defending Tyson because Tyson is the opportunity right now.
Sure.
Tyson is where the money is in the room. And everybody's sitting in the room, nodding their hats and telling everybody how wonderful it is in Saudi. And obviously sitting there saying, oh, well, we're all so grateful. Well, fantastic. Yeah. Well done, you lot. The fact of the matter is you've got your new friends in the desert and that's wonderful. But the bottom line is people are still allowed to have an opinion.
Sure.
And talkSPORT is a slight battle going on between freedom of speech and PR. talkSPORT's job, or any broadcaster's job, I would imagine, is not to be a PR extension of Queensberry or Tyson Fury. And the trouble I have with it all, insofar as I have any trouble, is that it was difficult for Adam on Saturday. I think he should have been stronger. I think he should have told Frank exactly what he thought.
I think he was worried about the backlash of what was going to go on.
And the IFL boys, insofar as they're relevant in any conversation, they should have been put in their place. The opening salvo should have been from Adam. And by the way, all you lot do is create division, misrepresent the content, take it, cut it, and put it in front of people, and create trouble because you like it, because you don't like the attention that platforms like talkSPORT are beginning to get in the boxing world, because that's your domain. I've sat here and watched this. I've been a Premier League football club owner, and I've seen temperamental people, and I've seen the backdrop of not allowing people to talk to one another because you don't like people's opinions. But this is on a different scale.
Yeah, sure.
This is on a different level. They're still banning talkSPORT from events. It's their gift. But if they don't want talkSPORT and a broadcast platform that has this amount of significance to cover their fights, that's fine. That's their choice.
Yeah.
But like everything in the world does turn. And, people do need people in a certain way. And this idea, because what happens is Tyson Fury and his gang of acolytes that are all making money off him will turn around and say, we're not coming on because it gives you clicks. Right? But the way it works in the world is broadcasters need sportsmen and sportsmen need broadcasters. Yeah. I never thought I'd make this argument because I always used to dislike broadcasters. But I always used to think they were irritants. But it's a Faustian pact. Without the content, broadcasters doesn't work. And without promoting sportsmen and making them into superstars alongside their talents, you don't get the awareness. So this silly little argument that's going on between, but seemingly now Queensberry as well, and Tyson Fury and talkSPORT is sad, really, because I think it's a terrible reflection of the sport, and it shows how small-minded, what a cottage industry it is. Whatever you may or may not say about Eddie Hearn, and I had some things to say to him, whatever you may or may not think about the interview that he and I did, or the 2 interviews that we did, at least he came in and said it to people's faces. All of these guys, Fury, all of them, whether it's Conor Benn, none of them will come in and stand in front of someone and say, you said this and I felt this about it. Well, I'll tell you why I said this and I'll tell you why I said that. And that's why they run around now getting all bitter and twisted when actually, it's fair opinion. I think it's a sad indication, and I felt sorry for Adam on Sunday.
Yeah, I did.
When I saw it.
I did, to be fair.
And I felt Frank took a little bit of a liberty.
I was there. We was working on Saturday night, obviously up in Manchester.
If they don't want to give, if they don't let people in the press conference, then don't let them in. I'd like to see, if it was my world, I'd boot them all off.
But this is the issue.
Say you can't have any airtime, and then soon change their minds.
Though, is not with Queensberry. the company Queensberry, because we've done the show on Saturday night.
Frank's naughty though.
But I think
Frank is naughty. He's perpetuating the myth.
Is with Team Fury. I think, or Team Fury has the issue with talkSPORT.
Frank will take exception to this with me because he and I get on very well. But they're naughty because they know that what's been said. They know that people didn't accuse him of ducking. They know that people have the right to an opinion. Frank had an opinion. Yeah. What he felt was that Adam Catterall talked bollocks. Yeah. So he's allowed to have that opinion. Right? Yeah. Other people are allowed to turn around to me, like Tyson Fury, and say, you've done all your money in football, you're a sausage, you couldn't run a bath. Yeah. They're allowed to say that. They're allowed to slag one another off endlessly. But when a broadcaster says, well, we don't like this and we don't like that, and they substantiate it by having a position behind it, they're boycotted. I think it's silly, and that's why boxing is a cottage industry in comparison to other sports. That's why broadcast platforms, that's why you don't have this abundance of riches being put in to boxing, and you need the Saudis, because look at it. Look at it. I look at it and I go, ugh, sometimes. I do. I thought the Premier League and football were I look at boxing and think, wow.
On that note, when are you coming into it?
Well, on that note, I feel like having a bloody domestos dip. Go back to something more encouraging.
Yeah, let's go.
Lifting. Some great fights on the weekend.
Yeah.
Adam Azim.
There really was. You know, in Wolverhampton, Adam Azim picking up the European title. Did I tell you?
Yes, Spencer. Yes, he eclipsed your youngest record. Yeah,
26 years.
Yes,
gone.
Yes.
Bittersweet. Now I'm glad if anyone was going to take that title. To be fair, it was Adam Azim. Exceptional talent to win a European title against Frank Petian.
Yeah.
It was a great performance. You know what it was? It was an educated performance. He took his time. Yeah. He was just shuffling in, waiting for his moment. For a guy who was only having his 10th fight, he showed incredible maturity.
Well, he had to show it in the last fight as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, against Fanian. That was a good performance as well. But he's gone up another level here, and I think that he was waiting for his time. The body shot in the 5th round was the beginning of the end for Petian, and yeah, I just thought it was a great performance. The stoppage in the 10th round, that was brilliant. On the undercard as well, by the way, was it a joint main event even? I don't know. Tyler Denny, he picked up the European middleweight title in an unbelievable performance. I mean, this kid has done it, like when I say done it the hard way, I mean, he's been on small hall shows as the opponent, keeps upsetting the apple cart, coming through, wins an English title, then all of a sudden gets an opportunity for European. If you looked at him, you go, if he wins in English, he's exceeded what he should have really, and he goes and picks up the European title. Brilliant story. And then obviously up in Manchester where we
two other notables, yeah. Well, it's two other notables, isn't
there?
Yeah,
two other notables. Yeah, Nick Ball. Let's start with Nick Ball, featherweight. Yeah, I mean, Isaac Dubois, he beat him, and what a performance he put in. Unbelievable. I mean, he showed that he belongs as world class. Dubois is a great fighter. A very, very good fighter, an excellent operator, still operating at top class. I think that Nick Ball, he showed that he can come through some minor crisis. He got caught a couple of times and he could have come undone, but he pulled himself back together, stayed disciplined. Granite chin, good hand speed, good movement, boxing IQ, all of that.
Future good job,
world
well
champion,
done.
Future
Nathan
world
Heaney.
champion.
Finish with Nathan Heaney.
Now I love this story with Nathan Heaney. Like unbelievable fan base. All those football fans come and follow him everywhere. The ring entrance, Delilah, he plays up with that. Like everything about him, the showmanship about it is brilliant. Did I ever think he'd win a British title? If I'm going to be totally honest, no. Never thought he had the ability to do that. But what I saw on Saturday night that I hadn't seen previously with him is the capability to, be able to adapt the way that he adapted. He went in there and he was against Denzel Bentley, who's the reigning champion. Denzel Bentley was an 8-1 on favourite. I mean, it was one of those. The bookies don't often get that wrong. And you go in there and you think that Heaney's one of those fighters that sits in the pocket a little bit, and that's where Bentley wants you to be. And you just think that Denzel Bentley's extra engine, his extra ring craft would win in the fight. I fought inside the distance. Well, how wrong was I? Heaney boxed well behind the jab. He waited for his opportunity, picked the shots well, sat there when he wanted to, boxed on the outside, and he ran away a well-deserved winner. And it was fairy tale story, really, again, for Heaney to go, take that British title. And what a performance! He proved a lot of people.
And wrong. Richard Riakporhe.
And Riakporhe as well, against who did he box? Dylan Brejon. Yeah, that was a good performance. Got the job done inside the distance. Billam Smith had been the distance with him previously. Chamberlain also been the distance. Brejon was one of those tough.
Big year for Richard coming up.
Absolutely. Huge year for him.
Well deserved.
Huge opportunity. 2024 brings world titles for Richard, without a doubt.
Right. That's it for episode 49. We look forward to a week of being banned and gagged elsewhere.
It's been a bit of a week, to be fair, isn't it?
But don't forget,
kicked out back.
Yes, it feels like I'm at home. Feels like I'm at home. Right, well, that's it for this week's episode of Talk Boxing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time we're out.